Hey, how's it going? I'm Cody Abrupta. I'm a senior engineering technician working for Van Cleef Engineering Associates. And today we're going to go over the sieve and tube permeameter testing. Now, this type of testing is typically done with septic sand, right? It's the select fill that goes into the septic field that's used to treat and dispose of the wastewater. All right, let's get into the test. All right, so before we start the test, you're going to need a couple of things. One is that the procedure for the test is, located in this area over here. Right now, this is the one for the soil permeability class rating. But if you flip to the very front, you can get to the permeability testing, and I think the tube permeameter test is the first one. So let's flip. Okay, tube permeameter test. All right, so this goes through the procedure for it. You can follow this or you can just watch the video. Now, when you collect the sample, you can use some of these coffee tins, right? We like to recycle here at Van Cleef, so you can use some of these coffee tins to collect your sand sample from the field. There's also additional coffee tins up here in these cabinets. All right, right now I've got this one filled from a job that we're working on with Scott Lutsky. Basically what they've got is they're using the Phoenix Quarries Select Fill. And this is the concrete sand from them. All right, that's what it looks like. So you need your sand. All right, we've also got our sieves, right? This is the stack that we're gonna use, as well as the dish underneath. You're also gonna want one of these because the sand you get is not gonna be completely dry, and part of the test is drying it out. All right, finally, you're gonna want these forms. All right, so we've got the sieve analysis and then the tube permeameter test data. This is the form 3B right here. Both of these can be found on the R drive under soil lab testing. And again, it's the sieve and tube perm test is the file name. All right, once you've got all that, we can get started with our testing. All right, so from here, the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna note down the job, the client, the date of analysis, all of that. I don't exactly remember the job number. I have to run back upstairs to check, but I do know that the source or the sample identification, right? The depth is going to be level of infiltration. The source is Phoenix. The date of the sample is today, August 31st. I believe it's the 31st. Yes, it is. Okay. And the date of analysis, also August 31st. All right. The first thing it's asking me for is the weight of the wet soil. To get that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my, my ceramic container. I'm putting it on there. 296 is the weight of that. Y empty equals 296 grams. And then I'm going to take some of my sand. I'm going to zero this out. Oh, it's 296 now. Let me change that. Oh, wait, that's what I had. Okay, good. I thought it was 297. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to take some of this wet sand, and I'm basically going to just shovel this in here. Okay, this is going to take a little bit of time here. All right, you know what? I'm going to use a bigger, I've got this scoop. By the way, this is where the sand goes once you finish testing it. I usually leave it on the counter for like a week or two, and then I'll move it into that waste sand pile. I'll show you more about what to do with that later. All right, so here we go. So this is our sand that we're gonna test. I like to kind of like make a little indentation in the middle here because I am going to microwave this sand. Now again, you could put this in the oven, which is on currently. The oven is being used for the soil permeability class rating test. But for right now, I'm going to do the microwave method. Again, what I'm going to do here, I open the microwave, put the sand in, throw it in for 3 minutes, and hit start. And basically, the microwave is going to start drying this out. Now, in order for this to dry out effectively, efficiently, after the 3 minutes, you're going to want to remove this from the microwave, stir it up with either a stirring rod or, there's a couple of other things that I've used. Sometimes I'll use like a screwdriver. Sometimes I use like one of these metal like sampling, pieces. But basically, yeah, you stir it up because there's moisture trapped in the sand and it's got to like evaporate out of it. All right. While this thing is heating up, I'm going to show you, this is the area we're going to use for the tube permeameter test. Now this one's broken, so until I have a chance to fix that, I'm going to use this one. Right. Basically, you'll notice that these notches, these are every inch. All right. So when we start filling it up with water, you can trace how fast the water is traveling down through it. This is the stone that you put on top of the sand after you pre-soak it, so that way the water's not coming direct into contact with the sand. It's being dispersed by the rocks. This is the soaking basin that I'm going to use. Basically, it's just a beaker filled with tap water. It's been allowed to sit out here for a little bit, so the dissolved oxygen is whatever. That's what they want. They want you to have it aerated, I guess. And so it's been aerating here. It's basically just been sitting here exposed to the air. All right. And for the tube permeameter test, I actually don't necessarily need dry sand, but I do have to run it through a sieve first. I have to run it through the number 10 sieve. And wet sand, it doesn't really travel through that sieve very well. So I will be drying out a little bit more for that test later on. All right, for right now, we got another minute on the clock here. All right. Maybe I can cut this out of the video so that way it speeds things up a bit. What I did here is I just filled this up with sand. This is the number 10 sieve right here. Where is it? Number 10. It's also got the bucket underneath. I'm gonna put this in the oven and maybe air dry it a bit. Okay, so we finished. This is gonna be pretty hot, so you're gonna want your gloves. It's not gonna be completely dry right now. One thing you will notice is some of it's starting to dry out. I'm going to use this to mix it up, and I'm going to use one of these to hold it so I don't spill it everywhere. As you start mixing it up, you'll start feeling the heat coming out from the inside of the sand. All right. Again, it's pretty damp still. But by doing this, it allows the sand to dry out a little bit, some of the moisture to be released. Now we are going to need the measurement, the weight measurement. So you see how there's all this excess sand here? What I'm going to do is I'm going to brush it off. All right? And there's these paint brushes, and these are pretty good at getting the sand off of your mixing device. Again, if you miss a couple particles, it's not going to be a big deal, but you don't want to have like a good chunk missing. All right, I'll put this back in the microwave for another 3 minutes. And maybe we'll cut the video, fast forward so you can see that. Okay, so just finished the second 3 minutes. We're going to open this up. Again, I'm going to put on my trusty oven mitts so I don't burn myself here. Trust me, it's very hot coming out of the oven, or microwave oven. And you'll notice that it should be a lot lighter in color as it dries out. I mean, I don't know if you can tell it from the camera. And also, as you start mixing it up, it'll kind of, you'll notice it will kind of crumble a lot easier. Sometimes you'll be able to tell that there's like steam rising up from it. I don't know if you can see it in the camera. I can't really see it right here from the angle I'm looking at, but it's there sometimes. Alright, let's see. It does look a lot drier. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just let it sit for another couple minutes to get the last little bit of moisture out. Again, if I wanted to get this as oven dry as possible, I would put it in the oven. Like if I wanted the 100% of the moisture to be out of this, oven drying it is the best way to go. The one reason why I often don't oven dry this particular sand is, one, I can get it close enough with the microwave. Like I can get if I'm just gonna make up a number here, I can get 97% of the moisture out with the microwave. If I wanted to do the 100%, again, I'd put it in the oven. But the oven takes a lot longer than just 6 minutes of microwaving. If I wanted to be even more thorough, I could throw this in for another couple minutes, and it'll dry out even further. Again, for the test, it doesn't really impact it, at least for the sieve analysis. The moisture content doesn't really mean anything. I mean, it's listed on the form, but it's not really asked for by the county health department or town health department ever. I've never really seen it on any of their forms. And also, it doesn't really impact the sieve test too drastically if it's not 100% dry. Now again, if it is a little bit wet or if there is a little bit of moisture, it's going to stick to the to the slots, to the openings, to the sieve. So you do want it dry for that purpose. Again, I found that with the microwave method, it gets it dry enough that it doesn't really stick substantially. And there are ways to kind of unstick it as you're going through the test as well, which I'll kind of show you. All right, but what we're going to do, I'm again just going to let this sit for a little bit. One of the ways to tell that there's no moisture left is as you're mixing it up, it doesn't stick like it is right here, right? If it sticks to this, it'll stick to the sieve. So I'm actually going to put this in just for another 2 minutes, just to make sure it's nice and dry and without moisture. I spilled a little bit, but it's a negligible amount. So we'll check back in when this is done. Okay, so we finished microwaving it for another 2 minutes. It's looking pretty bone dry at this point. Again, we'll mix it up just a little bit extra, just to see how we are here. It is sticking a little bit. Okay, yeah, it's really not sticking anymore. Yeah, it comes right off now. All right, good. So again, that leads me to believe that this is pretty dry. Now, the fun part. We're going to put it through the sieve. All right, I'm going to take this with me. All right, let's see. Let me just put this glove on here real quick. Here we go, bringing it over here. Okay, so I'm going to move this out of the way. Alright. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put this through the different sieves. Just getting my other glove. And again, I'm basically just going to take this, I'm going to dump it in. Now, if you want to be extremely accurate, you would take the empty weights of each of these. The weights of these doesn't really change ever, so I already took the weights and I wrote it down on my piece of paper up here that I'll show you in a moment. So I'm not going to measure them. I'm just going to put this in here. Now, you may want to put a top on this, you may not. It depends how rigorous you're going to shake it. I usually start with just a little side-to-side shake like this. Now, the very top sieve, the 3/8 one, there's really not anything that's supposed to be captured on this. So if you've got big rocks in your sand, you're probably going to have an issue. Now, if you can see here, there's nothing in the top here. Maybe just a little bit of sand dust, which I will take off with this. All right. So I'm not going to shake it more rigorously because, again, I know I can already start by taking this piece off. Now, to measure this, what I'm going to do, again, I'm going to use this method. I basically put a cup on here, zero it out, and then I take the piece off. 551, that's what it should be. And then I write it down here, 551 minus 551 equals 0. All right, and again, if you want to know how I know it's empty, but I also have them written down here, right? If you go to the sieve number, the 3/8 one isn't written down on here, unfortunately. I probably should have that there. But I know just from doing the testing that it's 551 is the empty weight. All right. This should be, the number 8 should be 486, number 10, 473, number 16, 435, 410, 379, 350. There's no number 10 in this stack because you don't need it for the test. It's not on the sheet, but you do need the number 10 later on for other tests and for the permeability class rating. All right, so anyway, now that I know this one doesn't have anything on it, I just put this off to the side. This is usually where I'll put a top on so I can shake it a little more rigorously, all right? From here, I try to go on an angle, right? Get some swirling motion, maybe some shaking, right? Right? You shake it around a little bit. We do have sieve shakers in here. I try to avoid using them though because one, this motor like kicks up dust and stuff and it makes it hard to breathe in here sometimes. And two, these things are loud and they shake like crazy. You see this chain on here? Yeah, that's to try and reduce the shaking that happens when this machine is shaking the sieves up and down. It's just a pain, and I find that you can do it handheld relatively easily enough, so it hasn't really been an issue for me here. All right, I'm gonna put this back here. Let me just check my frame, make sure I'm good. Let's move this guy out of the way. Okay, good. So I take that off. It will steam a little bit because again, the sand is hot. I'm going to take this piece off, put it on top of here. 532. Okay, so then I write this down. 532 minus number 8, 486. All right, I'll do that math later. Usually from here, I'll either dump this or just so I have it, you know, I'm going to take this empty pan, I'm going to dump it in there. And I'm going to stack this back upside down. And then now I do the next one. Usually I'll give it a little bit of a shake just to make sure, one, that the sand is centralized, but two, that there's not any extra particles that haven't fallen through yet. I'll take that off, put it on here. We're on to number 16. It's 504. So I'll write that down. 504 minus, I go here, number 16, 435. All right, same thing. I'll dump this. Again, give it a little bit of a shake so it's consistent. Take this piece off. We're at number 30. 532. 532. And the number 30 weighs 410. So I can subtract that. Good. Dump this. Give it a little bit of a shake. Moving on to the next one. This is the 50. 577. And the 50 I have on here, 379. All right. I'll empty this. Give this one a little shake here. All right, number 100. This is the last sieve. 425 is the weight. Minus 350. But you don't want to forget the pan underneath. So the pan underneath has a little bit in it. Just throw that up on here. You can really get rid of this at this point. All right, 375. And then again with this one, we have a few different pans, so I don't know the weights of all of them. So I'm going to empty this, put it back on there, and it's 368. So not a lot that went all the way through. Once I've recorded these results, I'll do the math upstairs on the computer, or I'll just do it in my head and write what the weight of soil retained is. And once that's populated, it will populate the cumulative weight retained. Now, if you're wondering, how do I know what the dry weight is? Well, the dry weight of the sand is just going to be everything that's added up here, and it'll be down here. The way the sheet is set up already, though, it'll automatically populate that. So once you start putting in numbers here, it'll automatically tell you what the dry weight is. You don't have to measure it again after putting it in the microwave. I used to do it that way, but I realized that it's kind of unnecessary. You don't really need to do that. All right, that's the sieve test. The last thing you need to do for this one is you put the weight retained on number 8, and that gives you the percentage of coarse fragments. Again, the sheet will automatically populate that because it knows what's retained on number 8, so it'll automatically tell you. But some health department forms require you to put that information in, so if you're wondering where it is, that's the coarse fragment percentage. All right, moving on to the tube permeameter test. All right, from here, again, I started trying to dry out some of that sand by putting it in here. It probably didn't dry out very much because it wasn't in here for very long. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to microwave some of that sand a little bit longer, get it nice and dried out so it'll pass through that number 10 sieve, and we'll go from there. Okay, so I finished microwaving this sand a little bit. It looks like it's still a little damp. Hopefully it's not too damp. Yeah, it's still a little damp. So this is what I'm going to do. I am going to wipe this off in here so I don't get sand everywhere. All right. It's actually getting close to the end of the workday. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this oven dry overnight along with the rest of the sand sample that we collected for our sieve and tube permeameter test. I'm going to let it oven dry overnight, and then tomorrow we will run the tube permeameter test. That's the last piece that we have to do since we already finished the sieve test. So see you tomorrow. Okay, so we've managed to dry out our sand sample that we're going to use for the tube permeameter test. So once this is dry, again, you could have done it by microwaving it or whatnot, but I put it in the oven because I wasn't going to finish the test yesterday. So I'm going to take this dry sample. I'm going to pass this through the number 10 sieve. So now we've got our sand that we're going to use. And the process will be as follows. All right? Let's go over here. So basically what we need is we need these metal tubes up here. There's, they have this cheesecloth on the bottom. Some of them don't have that, but I can show you where that is. I happen to have 2 good tubes that are already good to go. But if you needed to put your own cheesecloth underneath it, You go in here. This is the cloth. What you do is you basically, and this is rubber banded, what you do is you basically take a section like this, you use the scissors to cut it, you fold it underneath the bottom of the metal tube, and you basically just wrap a rubber band around it. I like to also cut off like the extra pieces that are kind of folding over the side. But again, I don't need to do that right now because I have two good ones right here, good to go. All right, what you're going to need to do, let me just make sure these rubber bands are good. You don't want these rubber bands to break. All right, those are good. So for the tube permeameter test, we're going to use the second sheet in that sieve and tube permeameter report in that document. All right, the second sheet, again, the top will be populated just by putting in information on the first sheet. All right, I'm going to just clean my area a little bit so I can put this down. I will sweep this up later, but I want to be able to put my document down. All right, here we go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to weigh each of these. Now, these each have like a number. This is like the I, the Roman numeral 1, and this is a 1. But basically, you just want to differentiate between each of these because, again, just like the soil permeability class rating test, you need a replicate sample. So I'm going to take this I, all right, Roman number 1. I'm going to weigh it. Okay, 82. So I'm going to write that. We're coming back to here. All right, so it's 82 grams. So in this A, I'm going to put minus 82 because I am going to weigh it once it's full, and I'm going to have to subtract out the weight of this. All right, I'm going to take that off, put that on, 80. Okay, so I'm going to put minus 80 for my B. All right, now what I'm going to do, this is my B, this is my A. I'm basically going to fill this up with sand. I want to leave like 1 inch to 2 inches on the top. That's just what it says to do in the code. Let's see, I'm going to use, this is going to be my method, right? So I'm going to just take a spoon, shovel it in here. This can take a little bit of time. I'm going to try not to spill too much. You will want to kind of stamp it down a little bit just so that way the sand kind of settles, and you know it's not going to compact because it's sand, but you want it to be as compact as possible. All right. Stamp it down a bit. Here we go. I'm going to check what this is. So usually this ruler is floating around. I used to have a wooden one, and I think that one broke or got misplaced or something, but this one works, right? It just barely fits in here. So I'm checking. I'm at 1.5 inches. All right, I'm going to leave it at that. That's good enough. That's usually what I get to. All right, so what I'm going to do, I know that this is 6 inches tall, so it's 6 minus 1.5, right? Because there's 1.5 on the top. So that would come out to 4.5. Basically, that's how much sand is in the tube. All right, I'm going to do the same thing for the other sample, but before I do that, I'm going to take this, I'm going to weigh it, 403. I'm going to put that in for A, 403 minus 82. And then I'm going to take this sample, I'm going to bring it over here. Again, this water has been sitting here, aerating. I'm going to put it in there. I'm basically going to let that sand soak. Once that starts getting damp, which it will pretty quickly, then it's ready to run the test. But while this is happening, I'm going to prepare the other sample. All right, so from here, again, taking this guy, throw the sand in here. Now this is for a disturbed sample, right? I'm doing this specifically for sand. If this were to be done for native soil, you would actually need an undisturbed sample. Basically, you would need to take this metal tube and hammer it into the ground at the level of infiltration that you're interested in testing. But you can read the procedure for how to run that. There's procedure on that, not only on the on the stormwater code. I think the procedure is also outlined in the B&P manual and in the septic manual. So both the B&P and the septic code have how to run that tube permeameter test, a native sample. We're almost done here. We're almost full. All right, let's see what we're at here. Let's go a little bit more. Okay, there we go. We're at 1.5 here as well. I'm going to put this on here. I'm going to write 6 minus 1.5, which is 4.5. I'm just going to write 4.5. All right. My weight here is 402. I'm writing that down. And I'm going to soak this sample. All right, we're going back over here. If you notice, the sand changes in color, and you can see it's visibly damp. I'm basically going to take this guy out, put this guy in, and take this guy over here. All right, so this is where the test is going to be run. Again, I place it on top of there. Let me try to get a good angle here. There we go. I place it on top of here. In here, there's just some rocks. And basically what I do is I put this on top. So that way, as the water is flowing through here, it's not hitting into the sand and creating any type of an issue there. All right. From here, you have to very carefully attach this seal. What I do is I try to keep this here. I try not to pull down on this device. All right. I try to keep this here and push this upward. And I get a little bit of a twisting motion. All right. The reason being is because this seal here is a little bit temperamental. I've had to reseal this a couple times, and you don't want any air that can enter the system from here. You want this to be totally sealed. So I take extra caution not to introduce air to the system because that'll skew my rate. Anyway, once it's in there, all right, I'm going to use tap water for this. You don't need to use distilled water. Coincidentally, I've got this big one that I use for tap water. Don't confuse this with the distilled water for the other experiment. It can skew the results. All right, that's why I wrote in big letters tap water. All right. You're also going to need a phone or a stopwatch, and I also like to have my sheet ready to go. All right, so usually I use this little wooden stool right here, and I set up my shop. I have my pen, and I have this stopwatch ready to go, because this can run quite quickly. All right, stopwatch is ready. I'm basically going to pour a little bit of this water down here. All right, sometimes it'll leak out the top, that's fine. And once it hits this line, boom, I'm starting my stopwatch and letting it go all the way down. I know this is 9 1-inch sections, so it's a drop of 9 inches. Once it hits the bottom, I stop my stopwatch and I write down the time. It's 9.26. That's how many seconds. Now, for this test, the length is in minutes, so you will have to divide by 60. Don't forget to do that. All right? From here, I'm going to do it again. All right. And start. Again, I'm waiting for this water to drop all the way down. It's right about here. It's going to the bottom. Once it hits the bottom, I'll stop it. 8.98. You basically want it to be within like a second or two, at least for the sand samples. For native soil samples, it can vary a little bit more, but again, for sand, I try to get it within a second or two. just to make sure that it's consistent, because again, you want a good consistent result. So I'm going to throw it in here again. Alright, ready at my stopwatch. The water is coming down here. Start, and I missed the start. That happens sometimes. That's fine, you just add more water. Okay, here we go. Now I'm ready. Start. Good. All right, the water level is here. It's going quite quick. All right, and stop. 8.78. I'll do it one more time, just to have an extra number, see what it's at. Again, this runs pretty quickly. Water level is here. Boom, start, and I missed it again. That happens all the time. Alright, here we go. Start, and the water is draining quite rapidly. We're at right about here, and stop. 8.98. Yeah, that's pretty consistent. In fact, that's what we got for the second one. Alright, good. And then once you've done that, this replicate sample is done. I will disconnect the device. I'll try to dump the rocks back into here so I can keep reusing them. But you got to be careful because you don't want to accidentally dump the sand in there, because then you got to clean the rocks. And then from here you can do a couple of things. What I usually do is I just dump this right back into the container, just in case I need to retest the sand later on. So I'll show you what that looks like now. I bring this over here. This is the container I got it from. I basically dump it back in there. It will introduce some extra rocks, but that shouldn't really make a huge difference. It will be a little sandy on the inside here, so what I do is I run it through this, I run some water through it just to clean it off. All right. And then again, I'll leave this on here and I'll put this somewhere to dry. Actually, what I'll do, because if the rubber bands are wet, they can break. So I try to take this top and at least tamp it down a little bit, just so that way it's a little bit more dry. And then I'll basically leave this to sit and let that dry out. All right. I don't know if you saw that, but I basically just took a towel and dried the end piece a little bit just so the rubber band would stay intact. And now from here, what you can see is the water level is actually too low really to make this too damp. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to introduce a little bit more water. Let me put this over here. I'm just going to add a little bit of water here so that way it can come up. All right, and now we're good, right? So again, water level increased a little bit, so now the water came up to the top of the sand. I'm gonna take this out, give it a little shake so I don't dump water everywhere. Put it over here. Again, same thing, I'm taking my rocks, doing just a little layer on top there. That's pretty good. You basically just want the sand covered. All right, I'm gonna reset this. I'll give you a different angle now of the test. Let me go, let me go over here. All right. I'm going to put this piece on top. Again, I apply upward pressure here and just hold this in place because I don't want this to break the seal here. All right. Another thing you can do here is you can use this tap water spritzer, right? Again, this has to be pretty much full though, and then you can use the tap water spritzer to add additional water if you need. But if you just try to do it from empty, there's no way, it's not gonna work. All right, so I'm adding some water here. Let me get my stopwatch set up. Again, if your stopwatch isn't ready to go, you will probably miss it. All right, adding a little bit of water here. All right, here we go. We're ready. Start. All right, the water is here. It's coming down. Once it hits the bottom, we stop. 10-10. Reset. I might have been a little bit late on that one, but it's okay. Again, I'm going to make sure I'm getting consistent results here. Pouring my water in. Getting ready. Start. Let's see. So again, the water level's right about here. It is going down the tube and stop. All right, 9.98, so that's pretty good. And we add some more water. Okay, get ready. Start. Again, the water level is dropping here. I'm going to get ready to stop it. 9.24. Again, that's very consistent. I'm going to just leave it at that. That should be plenty. All right, and then once you do that, you bring this upstairs. You plug all the numbers into the computer, into Excel, into the spreadsheet. One of the things you will need to do is you want to make sure that your time for the water drop and the distance between these two are correct. All right, so in this sheet right now that I'm using, it's 17 minus 12, which is 5. But for the test I was just doing, we were watching it drop 9. So what I would do is I would do 17 minus, minus whatever, and make it time for drop. You would basically change this to 9, and you would change this bottom number so that way it's different at the end of the test interval. All right, and that way you would have your water drop 9, and the numbers would be correct. Like I mentioned, the length of the test in minutes, you want to divide this number by 60, so that way you have an accurate number. Don't forget to do that. And other than that, that's pretty much it for the sieve and tube permeameter test. Again, yesterday's sieve test, you would just input these numbers here, right? You would subtract the weight of the sieve from the measured weight, and it would automatically populate this all for you. All right, excellent. That's the sieve and tube permeameter test. Again, if you're looking for these forms, you can find this on the R drive, the reference drive. It's under Soil Lab Testing, and you should be able to find those forms no problem. All right, good luck. One thing I did forget to mention is I will leave this sand in this container. A lot of the time I'll mark it with a post-it note for the job number it's associated with. And I'll leave it for a week or two. But after a week or two has passed, I will discard the sand. When I discard the sand, what I do is I dump it in one of these buckets. If you see, this bucket doesn't have a bag in it, but these two buckets have sandbags in it. And so what I do is I fill these bags up with sand. Once they get full, I close them up. I put them, I don't have any right now, but I put them over here behind the door, let them sit there, and I'll reload them with another sandbag. And again, you can get these. I think I had Jill order these on Amazon. Again, they're super cheap. It's just sandbags. Actually, you know what? I might have even ordered these myself. I forget. Anyway, you know, this sand can just get thrown out, but I don't like to throw it out. I like to reuse it somehow. So that's why I fill it up with these. I fill up these sandbags and basically just keep them here until I find a use for them. One of the uses I found was, you know, my stepfather was putting up a pool, and the sand base, one of like the temporary ones, the inflatable ones, and the sand base they needed to replace. So I brought over like a couple bags of sand, you know, discard sand, and we used that instead. All right. Another project my dad was working on was like putting down patio pavers, and he needed sand. Okay, I brought over like a bag or two of the sand. It wasn't really enough to finish the project, but you know, we're getting rid of this anyway, and rather than dump this in the woods somewhere, might as well use it. Again, you know, these bags are reusable, so you can bring them back. But yeah, you never know when you're going to need sand for something. So that's what I do with the sand. Again, once these fill up, I put them behind the door and just leave them here until I come up with some good project. And also the last thing, when you finish the testing, your area is going to be a little bit of a mess. Obviously you want to clean it up. There is this brush and dishpan, and basically, you know, you can use that to sweep and get most of the sand and throw it out. All right, excellent. Good luck with your testing.